All right. Hexagram 24. Hexagram 24. And for this one, I got line 3. The judgment. Well, hexagram 24, returning. The judgment, returning. Success, going out and coming in without error. Friends come without blame. To and fro goes the way. On the 7th day comes return. It furthers one to have somewhere to go. This hexagram is one of the 12 calendar hexagrams based on the coming and going of the light of the sun in the course of the year. Here, the single light line that has entered the hexagram at the bottom represents the first increase in the altitude of the sun since the winter solstice, hence its name, returning. The sage defines the theme of this hexagram as returning to one's original nature and to unity with the cosmic whole through splitting apart from the ego. Returning also indicates the direction in which the path of development leads, back to the person's original nature. It does not lead forward through cultivating virtues or becoming something we are not, but is a process of continuous subtraction of what we have falsely added, thus to allow the true self to resume its path toward maturation. Each step on this path leads to increasing light and relief. One takes this path through ceasing to look outward for the solutions to problems, to look inward instead, to the choices that have been made. Each hexagram illuminates some hidden part of the psyche, helping us to discover our true nature. We receive this hexagram when we are ready to return from a mistake. Friends come without blame means that when we have the humility to acknowledge a mistake, the helpers are freed to come to our help. To and fro refers to departing from one's true self and then returning, as the way the student of the sage learns through experience. His mistakes are necessary. His mistakes are a necessary part of his learning. On the 7th day is a reference to the words 3 days before and 3 days after, mentioned in hexagram 18, recognizing and correcting the causes of decay as the time required to correct mistaken ideas. On the 7th day, the person is free of the blame he incurred through holding the mistaken idea. This hexagram chiefly concerns pride as the element that holds a person back from returning to humility. It also concerns indulging in hurt pride, which causes the heart to harden. The way of return is for the person to reopen his heart and apologize to the cosmos for having allowed himself to indulge in hurt pride. It furthers to have somewhere to go, counsels a person who is experiencing an illness caused by a fate that he needs to discern where true help comes from, the sage and the helpers of the invisible world. This hexagram calls upon a person to identify the mistaken ideas that have caused the fate. Among such ideas are those that denigrate the body and thereby create ill health. Ridding himself of them will return him to unity with himself and to good health. This hexagram is also related to hexagram 21, biting through, which concerns a person who has been using power to make things happen according to his design. His doing so has created a fate, which he has falsely interpreted as cosmic punishment. The fate has aroused his pride, since he believes it to be undeserved. This hexagram calls him to return to humility. If pride is not dismissed at once, the ego can quickly build it to demonic proportions. Thus, the lines of this hexagram also address the various hindrances that the ego raises to prevent the person from returning to humility. Return can also be counseling a person to retreat from the idea that he may be guilty for following his inner truth. Guilt was invented by the collective ego to keep the individual under its control and is the reinstalling feature of the false program it interjects into the psyche of the child. See page 39, Guilt, Blame and Shame. Spells associated with this hexagram have to do with mistaken ideas about the path of development, as for example, calling it a spiritual path or seeing it as a forward or upward leading path, or as leading to a pinnacle of enlightenment, or to seeing it as a path of achievement or of repentance. Development is only a matter of taking away the false inner program of the ego. I want to highlight that one there. Return can also be counsel to return to the stored memories that are the basis of one's prejudices and fixed ideas about something or someone and rid oneself of them. This is the way to return to an open mind and heart. One may need to examine whether these prejudices have led to spells or projections that also need to be eliminated. Return can also indicate that the inner channel to someone that was blocked is open again because the person has eliminated the spells and projections that caused the blockage. The sage and the helper of transformation are freed by a person's return to humility. Next are the lines, the 6 lines. And on the 6th line, I'll give my contemplations. Line 1. Return from a short distance. No need for remorse. Great good fortune. This line is saying that recognizing and saying the inner no to an ego emotion at its onset prevents it from encroaching further and from gaining in strength and momentum. A person can receive this line when he has been trying to fit the sage's answers into his existing beliefs, consequently has received confusing or contradictory answers. This has made him consider giving up on the I Ching. This line is telling him that if he will not be deterred by this problem and open his mind, the sage will return and communicate with him. I'll say that again. This line is telling him that if he will not be deterred by this problem and open his mind, the sage will return and communicate with him. Another obstruction of this sort may occur when the sage has told him something the ego in him does not want to hear. This line tells him that he has only partially understood the answer, and if he will open his mind, he will understand that the message was not intended to make him feel guilty or inferior, but to liberate him from fears and doubts about himself. A person may also receive this line upon experiencing relief from an illness. The relief has come through the intervention of the sage, but the person has falsely attributed the success to the person through whom the sage has helped him. If he returns from this view and also credits the helpers he has overlooked, there will be great good fortune in that his healing will be completed. This line can also refer to a person who, in following a spiritual path, has not experienced the benefits he expected. Instead of questioning whether he has been following the correct path, he interprets the counsel to return as saying that he has not tried hard enough and needs to try harder. He must recognize that a spiritual path, as described in the main text, as a forward-leading path that leads to more and more separation from his true self, as he tries to become something special, that is, a spiritual being. The path of return indicated by this hexagram is the path of divesting oneself of all self-images and attempts to be special. The person needs to also rid himself of the blame spell he has put himself for not doing enough. Line 2. Quiet return, good fortune. This line can point to a situation of hurt pride. The hurt pride can come from two sources, from being mistreated or from false feelings of guilt. It is important for the person to identify the images that are connected with his hurt pride and rid himself of them. Otherwise, these images will give fuel to vindictiveness and self-righteousness. Quiet return may also refer to a person's feeling of being punished by the sage and his concluding that the sage is another name for the authoritarian god. He may also have received Hexagram 21, biting through lines 1 or 6, which describe a person who is held in stocks or a wooden kengu. This line is saying that the stocks and kengu have been put on the ego by the sage to protect the person's true self from being compromised by disharmonious action. The stocks hold him back from acting, and the kengu makes him become quiet within, enabling him to distinguish the voice of the ego and its rationales as false. This line can also point to the return of feelings of guilt. Guilt is an invention of the collective ego, designed to keep him under its control. The person needs to get rid of all ideas of guilt and of the idea that repentance would free him of it. Repentance slanders the loving nature of the cosmos, which holds nothing as guilty. I'm going to highlight that. Repentance slanders the loving nature of the cosmos, which holds nothing as guilty. The cosmos gives the person all the help he needs to return to sincerity. After ridding himself of his guilt spell, the person also needs to free himself of his belief in repentance. Finally, quiet return expresses the cosmic principle of allowing a person to return to humility without having to lose face. This line is stating the importance of not confronting him outwardly, but giving him space to return of his own free will to his true nature. I'm going to read that line again. This line is stating the importance of not confronting him outwardly, but giving him space to return of his own free will to his true self, without requiring him to jump over a list of hurdles to prove himself worthy. Just want to highlight that. It is vital that his dignity is respected. Saying the inner no corrects him through the inner channel, out of the sight and hearing of the ego, thus neither arouses his defenses nor jeopardizes his dignity. The inner no acts in the same way as the stocks and the kengu to invisibly influence a person's actions to return to harmony. I'm loving this. Line 3. Repeated return. Danger, no blame. Repeated return refers to a person who wishes to return to humility but is held back by pride and fear of guilt. The danger lies in his giving away to these ego emotions, which will re-establish the ego's power over him. He can free himself from blame if he will search out and rid himself of the spells that hold his pride or fear of becoming guilty in the first place, guilty in place. Read that line again. He can free himself from blame if he will search out and rid himself of the spells that hold his pride or fear of becoming guilty in place. Some seed phrases that make up such spells are, "You can never be forgiven for such errors." A statement of the ego to keep a person from returning to his true self and to hold him in his pride, which is a cover-up for his feelings of guilt. "I should have known better," a self-blame spell. Return would mean giving up everything you are. A threat that says, without the ego, you are nobody, and there is no point in going backwards. If a guilt spell and or a self-blame spell remain after getting rid of other more obvious spells, the guilt will re-establish the other spells. You have to try harder next time, while not a spell, can be the urging of pride to make a person return even more resolutely to the false path of striving to fulfill a self-image. Gotta highlight that bad boy. Repeated return suggests the presence of a spell that contains the word always. Such a phrase may be as simple as, "I'm always late." It prevents the person from becoming free of that habit. Gonna highlight that one too. So that was the line that I got. Resonates big time. Line 4. Walking in the midst of others, one returns alone. Through following the path of his inner truth, a person finds himself alone. This is a good thing, for it is a necessary first step in learning to follow his inner truth, and to avoid falling back into an unhealthy dependence on others. Authorizing himself, which is one of the goals of bringing his true self to maturity, cannot take place as long as he depends on what others think. This line often refers to a person who is listening to others' thoughts and statements, or is witnessing their deeds. His duty is to say the inner no to those thoughts and deeds which are disharmonious, and when in doubt whether a no is needed, to consult the sage through the RTCM. This enables him to relate to the situation correctly without having to leave the group outwardly. The inner no connects with the inner truth of the others present and calls the helpers into the situation. The line can also refer, as in line 3, to the use of words such as always that fix situations as inevitable. Fixing an effect as always happening not only deprives the circumstance of its capacity for uniqueness, it causes the unwanted circumstances to return in the manner of a self-fulfilling prophecy. An example is, I always get a headache when I drink wine. This creates a spell causing the headache to return every time the person drinks wine. This creates a spell causing the headache to return every time the person drinks wine. Receiving this line counsels a person to look for spells of this sort that are affecting his current situation. Another word that creates spells is the word is, when it is used to describe a person or thing's nature, as in, he is that way. Line 5. Noble-hearted return. This line points to a person's noble-heartedly letting another off the hook of his mistake by ignoring it or forgiving him. This idea is pretentious in that it assumes he has the power and ability to forgive. It puts him on a pedestal of being noble and gives the other a false approval and implicit permission to continue his behavior. The idea of being noble-hearted is a self-image often used to enable a person to momentarily put aside his wounded pride in order to make peace with the other. However, because the wounded pride is not eliminated, it remains buried in the subconscious as a bitter memory, which arouses emotions that return every time he meets that person. I love it. So long as he has not freed himself from that memory, he remains negatively attached to the other and pulled toward him. Such an attachment is called a love-hate relationship. To become free of this attachment, the person needs to recognize that the ego is behind his hurt pride in the form of the self-image of being noble-hearted. Since the person who has a noble-hearted self-image regards noble-hearted as meaning forgiving, enduring insult, and being above what is crass and ugly, he draws to himself situations that invite abuse, insult, and crassness. Oh, that's just delicious. Often a person adopts the ideal of being noble-hearted as compensation for feelings of guilt. Either it is the supposed guilt he was born with, or a belief that he has broken some rule or commandment just by existing, which has been carried over from childhood. He may have been led to believe he was in the way, or a nuisance, or even the reason his parents divorced. His noble-heartedness comes from unconscious feelings carried forward of not wanting to make others suffer from the same guilt that that himself has felt, and so he forgives or dismisses what they do. I'll read that line again. His noble-heartedness comes from unconscious feelings carried forward of not wanting to make others suffer from the same guilt that he himself has felt, and so he forgives or dismisses what they do. To free himself and them from the consequences of these mistaken beliefs, the person needs to free himself from the original guilt spells that he has taken on even as a small child. When noble-heartedness has become a self-image, it follows rigid commandments to forgive, endure, and be above what is low. Therefore, it is not the same as natural feelings of sympathy. Natural sympathy is spontaneous, heart-to-heart communication with another's true self, as when in situations of shock, the ego is temporarily frozen and the true self is freed, or when there are natural feelings of attraction between two people. That's great. I'm going to highlight that bad boy. Highlight. Change color, please. Beautiful. Line 6. How big is line 6? Okay, cool. Right, nice. Line 6. Missing the return. Misfortune from within and without. If armies are set marching in this way, one will suffer a great defeat, disastrous for the ruler of the country. For 10 years, it will not be possible to attack again. This line can refer to the fate created when a person adopts the self-image of being noble-hearted as mentioned in line 5. Such a person is trying to be like God, whom he believes to possess unconditional love, which he interprets as overlooking and tolerating ego behavior. He does not see that this self-image has put a spell and lock on all his senses of discernment. The sage makes us aware that the cosmic consciousness, the source of all love, retreats in the presence of the ego and withholds love so long as the ego is present, and in this way draws the person back to his true self. Practicing unconditional love creates one fate after another, the disaster mentioned. Oh, this is great. Misfortune from within refers to a fate coming in the form of an illness. The illness is due to mistaken ideas that have created holes in the person's natural defenses, thus making him susceptible to the illness. The mistaken ideas that create such susceptibility are described in the appendix. See page 544, Freeing Yourself from Some Health Problems. Setting armies marching refers to speaking or acting aggressively against the perceived wrong actions of others. Bringing their actions out into the open only causes inner or outer wars through creating a loss of face and humiliation to the pride system the ego has erected in them. I'll remember this one. The correct way to treat such wrongs is first to say the inner no to the ego in oneself and its desire to become self-righteously involved in the situation. Second, to say the inner no to the ego in the other and its transgressions, and then to turn the matter over to the cosmos. Only then will the situation be remedied. 10 years is a metaphor for the time spans connected with fates. Some fates last 3 years, some 10, some 20. They can be avoided if we take heed upon receiving these timely warnings. They can also be ended, if already in progress, by disposing of all of their causes within ourselves. Spells and poison arrows associated with this line have to do with seeing others or the human condition as the cause of the problems in one's life. Phrases behind these spells are, "I would never do such a thing," "The other has no morals," "Every act has a selfish motive," "People are that way," "Human nature is faulty," "Suffering is a natural part of life," "Humans are born into this life with all the responsibilities but no help," "Our leaders are the source of all our problems." This last idea denies that the individual always has the ability to say the inner no and thereby gain the help of the entire cosmos. Gain the help of the entire cosmos. All right. So here are my contemplations. You can listen to this or not. It's up to you. Where to go? Where to go? Oh, just in case you don't know, I've got Tommy in the harness right now. So if he makes too much noise, I'll do a separate recording. So this is the trip, right? This is the trip, as far as I can see. And this I Ching has really brought this into my awareness, that the deconditioning, the undoing of all the stuff that we've added onto ourselves, is where we are the most ourselves, and where the cosmos wants to help us do whatever it is that we are here to do and be. So in my circles, in the life that I've been, the childhood that I've been raised in, a Christian childhood, and then with a prepper father who would be freaking out about Y2K or the mark of the beast or whatever, and then being completely powerless to the government, being powerless to institution, like, oh, you have to get a job, you have to do this, you have to get a mortgage, life is full of suffering, and being constantly reminded that, life is hard. Life is hard, you got to work a job, you got to pay tax, you get married, you have children, make sure you find yourself a good woman, and then like my dad's life was mostly about betrayal and self-abandonment. And for him, I mean, he studied a number of doctrines, and Christianity was the one that he chose to sit with the most. And in that, there's still the original sin. He speaks to original sin, that humans are inherently faulty, right? And he has a trust issues. And for me, being able to step away from that entire world and trust people has been an ongoing, deconditioning, like feeling that ego that pops up that wants to not trust another person, right? Feeling the ego that wants to come up. The common sense is that, this is that thing where you got to trust another person. Like something that came up quite recently that I'm just popping into my head there. So I was paying someone quite a lot of money to help me with spiritual attacks. I can't remember if I've spoken about this before, but a lot of money, right? Because my business was suffering. I couldn't work out what was going on. I wasn't getting any clients. And he said, oh, John, you're actually under spiritual attack in Australia, under spiritual attack. I was like, okay, cool, let's just sort this out. What happened was I couldn't keep paying him. So I just needed to say, look, mate, I can't pay you anymore. I signed a 12-month contract. It's happened to overlap with my contemplation of the I Ching. And I'm like, look, that's it. Like, I'm not going to pay you. What can I do to end the contract, end our agreement? And he said, what can you pay? I said, nothing. I can't pay anything. I'm not going to pay anything. That's it. I'm done. Right. So I've just pulled out of the whole thing. And for me, that's something that I would not normally do. I'm someone who will, to the detriment to myself and my family, that I would make sure that I paid somebody else because I've agreed to do it, right? So the guilt is such a powerful mechanism to keep people into control. Same thing with tax, right? With tax, there's if we don't pay tax, then how's the government going to support us? I think over the lockdowns, we can quite easily see that the world keeps turning. The world keeps turning when people stop working. And like right now in Australia, and I don't know how close you might be monitoring Australia's finances, in the global finances, what's going on in China, Japan, America, Australia, is that Australia's going through a complete recalibration of its economy. So who knows what's going to happen next? Like, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen over the next 2 years, and how this inner know's been playing out in it all. Self-righteously involved in the situation. So this is line 6 here. Now for me, and from the 5 personality patterns as well, the rigid survival pattern loves getting self-righteous because their whole life is built around rules. It's like rules, and when someone breaks a rule, it's like, oh, got to get in there. Got to get in there and just let you know just how much you've broken that rule, right? And then, especially my social media posting, like, I love getting in the face of people and creating that tension. And I think it works to a point. And then, like, over the last 2 weeks, I've really been being with this thing that comes up in my body, like this urge to fight, this thing that wants to get in there. And I put a whole bunch of posts in archive that I was preparing to put up there, like making them airtight and like really like pincer, like scorpion type, got you by the pincers, and then I'm going to sting you repeatedly kind of energy. I just archive them. I'm like, this is not the way. This is not in cosmic harmony. I can feel it in my body. I can feel it like that rush of wanting to fight coming through my body. And it's just text on a screen, right? Practicing unconditional love creates one fate after another, the disaster mentioned. Unconditional love, okay? And I think a lot of us go through this phase of unconditional love where we want to just love everyone. It's very merging pattern from the 5 personality patterns. And in that, there's a lot of self-abandonment, which is not self. So self-abandonment will naturally invite the ego in to fill that spot, right? So knowing when you're doing unconditional love, when you're being unconditional love and what that feels like for you in the body, I think is really important. It is for me, like even with Cassie, even with my son, like when am I overgiving? When am I giving to get? Can I feel myself being exhausted by the amount of volume of giving that I'm giving? Am I giving from me, or am I giving from a performance of wanting to be a good father, a good husband? You know, the one that gets things done, right? So this be like God can show up, I know, in me when I'm tolerating behavior to be like this noble-hearted person. And I used to do this a lot in corporate, where I wouldn't get angry, and my staff and other managers would be like, John, why are you so calm and casual? But I was just enduring. I was just enduring all the pain and the hurt. When noble-heartedness has become a self-image, it follows rigid commandments to forgive, endure, and be above what is low. Therefore, it is not the same as natural feelings of sympathy. Natural sympathy is a spontaneous heart-to-heart communication with another's true self, as when in situations of shock, the ego is temporarily frozen and the true self is freed, or when there are natural feelings of attraction between two people. So this is what I love about my relationship with Cassie, is that when we fight all in, okay? And when you're all in, shock appears, true love appears, attraction, natural feelings of attraction, because we're both in it together, right? So there's no need to pretend. We can just get annoyed at each other and just know that, well, we're going to get annoyed at each other, like we're two very different people. And in our commonalities, there's enough commonalities there in our attraction to make sure that we excel. Like right now, Cassie's upstairs just chilling, having a beautiful break from Luca and Tommy, rejuvenating. All right, so what is it? Just over 40, maybe 50 days in since Tommy was born. She got a checkup today because she was concerned about what was going on in her body. And the physiotherapist said, Cass, fine, you're doing great. What, you're resting? Pff, amazing. I just take it easy. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Like, the body is amazing, right? And in that, like, knowing that that's what's working for us and what works for her, it maintains the attraction. It maintains what needs to be maintained, right? And in that, when I'm sick of like taking care of Tommy or Luca, even though I don't get that, I just like find time to make a video or do something else which fully recharges me. Like, this recharges me. I love this. Like, I'm going to go upstairs after I've made this video and be like, hey Cass, how you doing, babe? What's going on? How you feeling? Since the person who has noble-hearted self-image regards noble-hearted as meaning forgiving, enduring insult, and being above what is crass and ugly, he draws to himself situations that invite abuse, insult, and crassness. I think I said this was delicious to me. It's delicious because, is this shaking the floor? Oh well. It's delicious to me because this is the endurer survival pattern, okay? And the endurer continuously it walks into environments of abuse and insult. Continuously. Because the endurer isn't allowed to fully express all of their feelings. They hold in. All right? So the rigid holds back and the endurer holds in. And to be aware of your body and what the holding pattern is gives you the permission to set yourself free. Because this is the common senses that come online that the I Ching speaks about. So you can feel that, oh, I'm actually holding in. I'm actually so angry right now. So mad, right? And when you authentically express that anger, it's not ego, okay? It's your authentic expression. When you try and hang on to it, that's when the ego capitalizes on it and goes, hey, Let's use that. I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to keep on talking from that anger, and I'm going to really rub it in their face, get extra self-righteous, yeah? However, because the wounded pride is not eliminated, it remains buried in the subconscious as a bitter memory which arouses emotions that return every time he meets that person, right? There's people in my life that I have attempted to forgive, and then whenever I see them, straight away that charge appears in my body. You fucking idiot. I hate you. You're a dick. You're just a dick. Right? Just really being able to be with that. Like, man, actually that's actually gone now that I've actually expressed it. Just visualize the person that I hold a charge on that actually lives in the area. The idea is pretentious in that it assumes he has the power and ability to forgive. It puts him on a pedestal of being noble and gives the other a false approval and implicit permission to continue his behavior, right? I love this. I love this, especially in the world of you got to forgive, just forgive and forget. No, who the fuck do you think you are? You can't forgive in the context of the I Ching, right? Just gonna wait. Cassie just flushed the toilet. Might need to get some sound padding on that. Because there's an assumption that you can forgive. Who are you to forgive? Who do you think you are? Like this other person might need to actually learn a lesson of not being forgiven. Like your forgiveness is a performance to get you off the hook. Right? Even resentment can help you understand, what am I really holding on to? Okay. Line 4. Cannot take place as long as he depends on what others think. This came up in a client session today. Actually comes up in lots of client sessions, it's particularly in both, the 16-week and the 12-month. Because when you're deconditioning your childhood experience, you'll come face to face with the identity that looks for approval outside of yourself, the external validation. And what I've found, it might not be you, but I've found it really helps to have someone remind you of who you are. So in that moment when you go to zero and you reset your identity, that you have someone there to say, hey, what do you mean I've changed? I don't remember changing. He goes, yeah, you did. Remember you used to do this, you used to do that. You don't even do that anymore. You used to send all these voice notes to me about this person. Now you've stopped. So, oh yeah, wow, I've stopped. Wow, John, I must have changed. Yeah, you changed, right? You're maturing. Your true self is maturing. And then, because it's a timed container, I disappear. I'm no longer there. And then so that you're trained to trust yourself. And the part of you that's been outsourcing your entire life, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think, Mum? What do you think, Dad? What do you think, brother? What do you think, coach? What do you think, whoever? So it doesn't matter anymore. You do what you want to do. You do what you do by listening to your body. That's a really important thing to listen to. And then consulting the sage here. This is something that I'm going to start doing, is making sure that when I am saying an inner no to somebody else, that it's correct. Because the self-righteous part of me will be like, cool, I've got a secret way of doing this. I can just do this any way I want now. I have the ultimate power. But just doing it in alignment and just checking with the sage is something that I want to start doing. Repeated return suggests the presence of a spell that contains the word always. This shows up in NLP, and one of my previous mentors identified any word that is not attached to time. Okay, so always is not attached to time. It's an infinite end, infinite beginning. Never is another one. Always and never are two words that when you listen to yourself say them, they're not attached to time, which means that you're casting spells not only in the future but also in the past, even though it's cyclical. So, I'm always late. Is that true? You're always late? I always find the wrong person. Is that true? You always do? You always? I'm never going to find the man of my dreams or woman of my dreams. I'm never going to get the money that I need to get to this thing. Never? You're never going to do it? So always and never in particular, there's a whole, I'm sure there's others, I don't know. Always and never are the two ones that are popping out right now, are part of spells that we've learnt in our vocabulary. Also, when you're arguing with someone, especially a loved one, those kind of words can also show up too. Like, oh, you never listen to me. You always assume the worst, right? Just casting spells on each other. So really catching yourself when you say these things gives you a presence to be able to pivot in the moment and pull that poison arrow out of your partner. Pull that poison arrow of the person that you're talking to. You have to try harder next time. While not a spell, can be the urging of pride to make a person return even more resolutely to the false path of striving to fulfill a self-image. This is such an important one in the context of personal development, especially in the world of the mindset and David Goggins-y type world where you just got to push harder. What didn't work? Do it harder, right? Business not working? Go harder. Not getting the muscles you want? Go harder, right? No. Okay. Again, this is part of outsourcing your inner truth. Listening to other people. You can only be successful if you do it this way. Like a classic example is that one of my clients, kickstarting various areas of her business, just doing marketing her own way. Not doing this, send 120 DMs, do your reach out. Make sure you're tracking your metrics. It's like when you're tracking metrics that aren't yours, you're destined to be conned or convinced to try harder. What do you mean you're not doing your DMs every day? That's why your business is failing. Is it? Is that exactly why it's happening? So some of us are here to not be part of that collective ego game. And to step out of that collective ego game can be really challenging because you're no longer listening to other people who are successful and have that self-image of successful that you might be projecting onto them. You're finding your own pathway, your own way of doing things that's in line with you and your cosmic harmony. There's a whole bunch of phrases here. Return would mean giving up everything you are. A threat that says without the ego you are nobody and there's no point in going backwards. Some really important phrases here. I should have known better. I should know better, right? I'm a relationship coach. I should know better, right? Even the relationship coach is a self-image. You can never be forgiven for such errors, right? Never be forgiven. And what popped up for me there was with one of my exes. Like I said to her, I want to be with you. I'll take care of you. She's got a chronic illness. I was out in 3 years. I said, I'm not going to stay with you if you're going to be this ill. And it's not. So for some people, that can be quite challenging to palate. But for me, my inner truth was, I'm not going to be with you for 3 years while you get better or work out what's up with you. I could just tell that was going to be death for me or something for me. It wasn't correct either way. So never being forgiven. So I can feel there's a burden on me around that. There's actually something I need to break in. I can feel the heaviness of it. I can feel this part the left-hand side of my body is it feels like quite metallic, and it's got a high-pitched sound, but it's making like a wah 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 when I'm present to it. Okay, so that's the thing I'm going to tend to say no to whatever it is, so I can be free of whatever that guilt is that's around that. All right, this line is stating the importance of not confronting him outwardly, but giving him space to return of his own free will to his true self without requiring him to jump over. Okay, cool. Great. So, this is so important especially for those that have done like communication courses or get sucked into that world of you got to say something to your partner. You have to take action. And what I've found in my practice is not doing any of that, just staying quiet for the most part. There's another hexagram that speaks to, don't speak if it's going to activate the other person's ego, because then you're just doing ego battle versus ego battle. It's pointless. You can't win. Winning's not even the goal. It's about returning to harmony. So allowing the other person to maintain their dignity, and that's an interesting one in the context of relationships, because there can be this, when we feel disrespected, we want the other person to feel the same disrespect at some unconscious level. That you hurt me, like an eye for an eye, but it's not intellectual. And if you actually feel it, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It's like, turn the other cheek. It's like, yeah, but that's a performance. If you're turning the other cheek as a performance, but you're still housing that bitterness whenever you think of that person, it's, oh, no, I forgave him. Family members that are classic for this. I forgave your mother. No, but then 10 minutes later, he's bitching her out. You might have people in your life that are like that too. So you don't want to arouse his defenses or jeopardize his dignity. And the inner no acts in the same way as the stocks and the kangu to invisibly influence a person's actions to return to harmony. I need to have a look at what a kangu is. Let's have a look at it. What is it? No, it's not a village. Kangu. Like stocks. Kangu. Oh, I'm missing an E. Ah, right. Interesting. So it's one of these things. It's like a metallic, like a BDSM bondage thing. Interesting. So it's like it's different designs. So it's similar to a stock, but you can wear it and they can move it. Oh, Chinese women wearing a kangu. If that's pronouncing it correctly. Kangu in stocks. The term kangu, here we go. The term kangu refers to a historical form of restraint typically used in East Asian cultures, while stocks are devices used for restraining a person's wrist. There is no direct connection between kangu and stocks in the context of financial stocks. Yeah, I'm just not interested in that. Interesting. Yeah, right, mate. Okay, cool. Back to the I Ching. So it paralyzes the other person's ego or puts them in stocks. So it allows the true self to emerge, and we don't need to have the self-righteous or that tally that I think we can have. Like, oh, I did it. Like I helped him change. Like I did the thing, right? Repentance slanders the loving nature of the cosmos, which holds nothing as guilty. The cosmos gives the person all the help he needs to return to sincerity. Repentance, okay? And this can be really challenging for someone who's come from that Abrahamic cultures, Abrahamic religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, where repentance is an important part of the process. But when guilt doesn't exist in this world, I think that I'm speaking to here, that we're creating, repentance it slanders. So what are you guilty for? What did you do? You're being you. Are you sincere? Did you do it sincerely? Did you know what you were doing? Then what's wrong? Why am I being punished? Well, maybe you're outside of cosmic harmony. Why do I keep attracting the same person? Well, maybe you're outside of cosmic harmony. Why do I keep losing all this money? Maybe you're outside of cosmic harmony, including how much money you think that you need. Maybe you need to reduce some of your expenditures. Maybe you need to cut back. Maybe you've expanded too much. Maybe you've listened to your ego and gone beyond what it is that you're what's in alignment with you, right? Okay. Development, making sure. Yeah, cool. The path of return indicated by this hexagram is the path of divesting oneself of all self-images and attempts to be special. This attempts to be special is quite pernicious, meaning that I found it to be, me personally, it sneaks up on me. All of a sudden, I've got this. Oh, I'm trying to be special again. Interesting. I'm trying to override something, right? And say, oh, just say no to that. Cool. What's the me and the me want to do? What's the true self want to do? Yeah. Development is only a matter of taking away the false inner program of the ego, removing. All right, so counterintuitive in an ego-driven world, right? The collective ego, removing. Return can also be counseled to return to the stored memories that are the basis of one's prejudices and fixed ideas about something or someone, and rid oneself of them. Like we have all these belief systems around the government is this, people are that, my partner is this, my mother is that, my stepdaughter is this, my stepfather is that, right? One of my clients quite recently asked me if she should send a message to her mother about how she was unhappy about how she was treated for her birthday. And I was like, hey, look, you can do that if you want. Like, you're not the same person anymore. And since the last couple of weeks of doing some work with me, like your mother's most likely changed as well. Totally up to you. So in my work, deconditioning your image of others is really important too, because you hold a bias to keep yourself safe or to some wall of protection, which is a form of control, which may or may not be your truth. And you've got to choose, well, is this truthful for you or not? What does your heart of hearts say? I just want to repair with this person. Great. Cool. What's the self-images that you're holding against them? Who are they to you, really? Oh, they're just an asshole. Cool. How so? What happened? Just unpack it. Feel it. Return can also indicate that the inner channel to someone that was blocked is open again, because the person has eliminated the spells and projections that caused the blockage. Just get connected. We're all connected anyway. And when an individual can remove the blockages, it allows even more connections to flow. The sage and the helper of transformation are freed by a person's return to humility. And what does humility feel like in your body? The fate has aroused his pride, since he believes it to be undeserved. Denigrate the body, belief systems. Like I hate my teeth, I hate my eyes. It's always my knees. My ears are just playing up again. All these things denigrate the body. I'm fat. I'm not muscly enough. Denigrate. Skinny legs. Pride holding a person back, keeping it armored heart. Pride, great, perfect. I'll wrap it up here. So, of the 5 personality patterns, the rigid is the most prideful. The rigid survival pattern is the most prideful. And their armoring is across their heart. So for the rigid patterned person, they can have their chest puffed up and puffed out, and depending on where their injuries incurred, they can have their pelvis pushed forward or their butt pulled back. But they can have this chest, which is pride. And for a rigid patterned person, they will do their best to escape any form of humiliation, because the humiliation confronts them with their true self, who they really are at the core. Or maybe they don't really know who they are at the core because they've spent a lifetime pretending to be someone else, outsourcing their worth to finance, assets, career, a job that pays really well but is identity destroying. It keeps them trapped in the collective ego. So in all of this, and what I'm getting from this hexagram is that returning to the self is a matter, again, of saying the inner known, being aware of all the beliefs, being aware of all the phrases, being aware of the terminology that we speak, either out loud or to ourselves or to others, and being quiet, for the lack of a better word. Just stop speaking. Like if it's not relevant, just shut up. Right? And when it's time to speak, speak. I'm sure there'll be another hexagram about that somewhere. All right. Mad love all, and thank you so much for listening to this one. Bye.